Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and today we're going to be discussing how armor actually works in Warframe. We're specifically talking about enemy armor in this video, but leave a comment letting me know if you want me to explain your Warframe's armor in a separate video. Ever since the Jade Shadows update, people have been claiming that armor strip is dead. And while they're right to a certain degree, as it's nowhere near as necessary to bypass armor through slash or full strip enemies, it's still worth understanding how the new system works so you can get maximum value out of modding your weapons. The reason that armor strip and slash were so important before the Jade Shadows update was simple. Enemy armor was multiplied by steel path and had no cap to it. This meant that enemies could reach insane amounts of damage reduction, so much so that reducing their armor by 90% through the likes of corrosive and heat basically did nothing to increase your damage. Armor strip was basically all or nothing back then. However, this has all changed. Enemy armor is now capped at 2,700, and that gives 90% damage reduction to the enemies. However, understanding things in terms of percentages can actually get a little bit tricky, so let's break down the math into a simpler form. Let's call this corrupted heavy gunner Henry. Henry has 1,000 health. At 0 armor, Henry's health and Henry's effective health are exactly the same. If we do 100 damage per shot, it would take us 10 shots to kill Henry. So let's beef Henry up. Every 300 armor effectively increases an enemy's effective health by 1 times. So if Henry had 300 armor, his effective health would now be 2,000. This means that he would take 20 shots to kill. Now, let's get Henry to be as tanky as he can be and get him all the way up to 2,700 armor. Remember that Henry gets an extra 1 times effective HP for every 300 armor that he has. So, Henry has 10 times the effective number of health, meaning that he has 10,000 effective health. This means that we would now take 100 shots to kill Henry. This isn't any good for us. We're taking 10 times the number of bullets to deal with Henry, even though Henry's actual health hasn't changed at all. This is where armor strip comes into play and why it's still really important. The difference now is that partial armor strip is much more effective than it once was. So let's find out why. Let's say that we're using a heat weapon. Heat reduces enemies' armor by 50%. This takes enemies down from 2,700 armor with 90% damage resistance to 1,350 armor, which is 81.82% damage reduction. Damage resistance, same thing. This doesn't sound like a lot, however, it also doesn't paint the full picture. Remember our 300 rule for effective health increases? 1,350 armor ends up being a 5.5x effective health multiplier. So instead of taking 100 bullets to kill Henry when he had max armor, we're now only taking 55 shots to kill him while he has 1 heat proc. This is obviously a massive difference. Still, this isn't great because we started off by only needing 10 shots to kill Henry. Let's say that we're using corrosive. The first stack of corrosive decreases enemy armor by 26% for 8 seconds, and each proc after reduces enemy armor by 6%. At 10 stacks, this will reduce enemies' armor by 80%. This takes enemies down from 2,700 armor to 540. This means that they have 64.29% damage reduction, but their effective health multiplier is only 2.8 times. This means that we take 28 bullets to kill Henry instead of 10. Now we need to learn about multiplicative armor stripping. This is what happens when you combine armor strip methods like heat, corrosive, etc. Essentially, the formula for this seems complicated, but it really isn't. It looks like this. So for Henry, with 1 stack of heat and 10 stacks of corrosive, we would have this. Now, Henry's barely got double the effective health that he would have if he had no armor. So instead of taking 10 shots to kill Henry, he's now taking 19. Stuff like corrosive projection functions in the same way and is going to reduce this number further. We just tack those on at the end of our equation. So partial strip is extremely viable, but remember that you'll still take nearly double the bullets on an enemy who's had 90% of their armor taken away by corrosive and heat. So there is other stuff that we can do. For example, 1 Tal Green corrosive shard increases the amount of armor strip that we can get from corrosive procs from 80% to 98%. This would leave enemies with 48 armor, making it take 12 bullets to kill them, rather than 10. Adding in a heat proc would leave them with 24 armor, meaning that it would take 11 bullets rather than 10. If we were to use 2 green shards and we got to 14 corrosive stacks, poor Henry would be left with no armor at all, and we would take 10 bullets to kill him once again. So what does all of this mean for us? When people are saying that armor strip is useless now, they're not 100% correct. Taking 10 times the amount of bullets to kill a target is a pretty bad deal. However, so long as you're using corrosive and or heat, partial armor strip is now much more useful than it used to be. The difference between taking 100 shots to kill a target versus taking 19 is absurdly helpful, much more so than taking 19 bullets rather than 10. Does that mean that armor strip helminth abilities are dead? Absolutely not. The reason why is quite simple. Corrosive requires toxin and viral also requires toxin. This means that there are very few guns in the game on which we can mod both viral and corrosive, as they need to come with one of the 2 elements innately. Viral increases our total damage by 3.25x at max stacks, and that's an enormous damage increase that we would very much appreciate having on. We can get around this by using 2 weapons. So let's say, for example, an epitaph to apply viral, and then a DPS weapon like the Stelta that uses corrosive. However, sometimes we don't have that luxury. On a melee influence weapon, we can easily prime weapons with either viral or corrosive, but since we're using electric damage on our melee and we don't often have the space to run viral as well, our options get a little bit more limited. Don't worry, we'll discuss the meatball in the room in a bit. So, how do armor stripping helminth abilities work? The way that armor strip subsumes work is that they remove the stated percentage of the enemy's defenses from the point that they're currently at. Even if we apply armor strip from statuses before we cast an armor strip ability, the armor reduction from the statuses will happen after the initial reduction from the ability cast is considered. This means that we can't, for example, strip 50% of an enemy's armor with an ability, then use status effects like heat and corrosive to completely get rid of their armor. So say, for example, we're using Terrify, but we only have 100% ability strength, and we're reducing armor by 60%. If we used our 100% strength Terrify on a strong, beefy 2700 armor Henry, it would take him down to 1080 armor. This means instead of a 100 bullets to kill, it would take 46 bullets to kill. If Henry had 10 stacks of corrosive and a stack of heat on him, one cast of Terrify would take him down to 1080 armor. Then the armor strip from corrosive and heat would reduce that further to 108 armor. This means that it would now take us 14 bullets to kill him. This is better than the 19 that it would have taken us if we didn't cast Terrify, but it's not by much. But if we cast Terrify a second time, that would stack additively with the first cast of Terrify. So we would reduce Henry's armor by 60% on the first cast and then 120% on the second cast. Obviously, since we can't remove what isn't there, once our armor strip hits 100%, it's always going to take 10 bullets to kill Henry. Weirdly, corrosive projection and armor strip abilities stack additively, even though corrosive projection applies to status type armor strip multiplicatively. So if we're running corrosive projection and an armor strip, since corrosive projection reduces enemy armor by 18%, the magical number that we would want to hit on our armor stripping ability is 82% defense reduction. So what are the options for armor strip subsumes? We have Pillage from Hildren. This is an outstanding defense strip that can be used both as an offensive and defensive ability, since it can restore your shields, cleanse statuses, and remove enemy defenses. However, it requires an enormous amount of ability strength to full strip enemies' armor, 400% without corrosive projection, and 328% with it equipped. Terrify from Necros requires very little ability strength, which is 168% without corrosive projection and only 138% with it, and can be made into a fantastic crowd control tool, both making the enemies panic or slowed if you're using Creeping Terrify. Ophanum Eyes, which is Jade's helminth, can slow enemies down and stack up Arcane Hotshot very quickly. Since it's a continuous armor strip, the amount of time that it takes to get fully rid of the enemy's armor is going to vary based on the amount of ability strength that you've got equipped. I don't personally like this subsume. Borrow Strike from Styanox has an extremely quick cast and can open enemies up to finishers, and it requires a moderate amount of ability strength, so 200% without cruise projection, then 164% with it. We've got Fire Blast from Ember. This one just sucks. Don't ever bother using it. Now it's time to talk about the big old meatball in the room, and that is Nourish. Since Nourish adds viral damage to our weapons, it seems to solve all of our problems, as we can run Corrosive, Viral, and Heat all at the same time to get the best of all possible worlds. Basically, a lot of the time. This is true, and it makes Nourish simply better than running like an Armor Strip ability, for example. However, I want you guys to check out this video that's on screen now so you can see why Nourish might not always be the best option. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it from me. If you liked the video, hit like. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, click subscribe, become a channel member for early access to all my upcoming videos. And if you've got any questions or suggestions, leave them down in the comment section below. Join the community on Discord, follow on Twitch, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.